So first things first, Lucy, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Thank you for asking. So before we get into the EP Self Sabotage, I'd like to go back all the way to the beginning. Now, I believe from what I read in doing research about you, you sang in choirs and then you were kind of tempted or attempted to do a solo. What went through your mind as you were kind of preparing for doing a solo on stage for the first time?
Um, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I don't really know at that point of my life what kind of led me to do that. I think it was I'd always loved to sing, and I'd kind of, when your parents are out of the house and you think for about half an hour of that time, I'm going to dedicate that whilst no one's listening to sing. And I used to get like the karaoke out on the on the computer at the time and kind of just sing as much as I could. And then I kind of realized through doing that I could definitely hold a tune. At least I thought I could anyway. So I think from doing that and then showing, I guess, my parents like the odd song here and there, and them kind of commenting on it and saying, oh, you should definitely sort of audition to be a part of the choir. And then kind of doing the solo, I think it was just a case of just do my best to get my voice heard. And I think I remember kind of being in front of my class at the time, and I was, like I mentioned in a couple of interviews, I was so shy. So I think to do that kind of was my alter ego, if you like. I kind of had, as much as I was a very shy young girl, that was kind of my outlet. And I found that even through doing the audition and everything that was running through my mind and being so nervous, as soon as I opened my mouth to sing, like all of my nerves sort of went away quite
Mm,
quickly. And then I think I did have a very nice reaction from my classmates, which was good. So I
that
think just
helps.
that always helped. So I think, yeah, ever since that one moment of me ever doing that audition, it's kind of just been ongoing that I've sang, if I hadn't have done that one audition all those years ago, like what maybe I wouldn't be singing now if I'd not built up that courage. So yeah, I think it was a strange time because I wasn't expecting myself to do that, but I think doing it, yeah, it opened a lot of doors for me.
You mentioned being shy as a child, and I can imagine when you get that positive feedback, that can give you quite a bit of confidence. So, did you kind of know that you wanted to be in music by that point, or did it take a while before you kind of figured, well, maybe I can make this a living?
Yeah, never did I think I
Okay.
could make it a living. It was very much a hobby at the time, and I think just even from where I'm from in Manchester, it was never really a given that that
Mm.
could ever possibly be a career. It was kind of like something that nobody else I knew around me even had as a hobby. So I think I spent quite a lot of time feeling quite alone with that hobby, and that interest, because it was almost as if it was a little bit laughed at because I didn't
Mm.
because nobody else sort of wanted to kind of be involved with that side of yeah, I guess singing generally for me, and music. Like I even studied like piano when I was in school as well, and that lasted for a couple of years, and then I gave that up, and I guess there was never really a push to kind of do anything to do with music. But the one thing that was very popular within my school was being a part of the choir,
Okay.
and was sort of like any kind of assembly, if you like, when you were in school, that dedicated that very much to singing. So that was always my way of feeling, if there ever was like a concert or anything, and the teachers would always kind of ask me to perform those solo shows.
Mm.
That was always like, a great confidence boost again for me, and to kind of explore my singing again and give me a good purpose, to continue with that.
Yeah, and I think when social media and things like YouTube got to a certain point, it became accessible for people to put music out, basically. So for you, what was the thing then that at a certain point in your life kind of compelled you to think, well, let me just record a couple of songs or do a couple of videos or covers and see what happens?
I think it was when it was probably around 16, and I decided to record a couple of songs that again were, I had no intention of doing anything with them. It was purely just as, again, as a hobby. But then
Mm,
at the time I was working part time in a clothing store, and I remember putting this music out to a few restaurants and to a few bars around the Manchester area, and them coming back straight away to kind of say, we'd love you to perform on a Friday and Saturday night at such and such a venue. And that kind of became a job quite quickly
mm,
over a short period of time. And I think that even that again kind of gave me that boost to continue this journey. And there was obviously something about my voice that people liked. And every time I was doing these shows, I'd be handing out cards, and it would be for people's birthdays or whatever it might be. And quite quickly, like I said, it did become pretty much a full-time job in the end.
mm,
And then I guess I was doing that for a few years. And then I decided to put some covers out online. So that was like on Spotify, Apple, every platform. And that was actually through somebody that I knew at the time that had started to build doing covers himself online, and kind of wanted to make it a bit of a business, I guess. And yeah, that quite quickly sort of developed, and I had about 5 songs out, and didn't, again, I was still doing the gigs and working the part-time job, and it was still this ongoing process of, where is my music leading to, what is going to happen with it. And then within about, I'd say, 3 or 4 months of having these 5 covers out online, one of the covers had gained over 1 million streams, and that then sort of led to me continuing
mm.
down that road. And yeah, just kind of still always wanted to write my own music, and within that time had written little bits here and there, more sort of poetry rather than actual lyrics for
Yeah.
songs. But it was something that I'd always been super, super interested in. So I kind of continued with the covers, still writing music behind the scenes, and then decided after so long that it was about time that I finally got my own music out there.
So I have one more question before we get into the music that you've written yourself. So those initial kind of performances, like you said, you could play Friday, Saturday, and that kind of became this whole live playing job. Um, is there one performance or something that happened that sticks out? Because I can imagine those initial months and years are very important in shaping kind of who you are on stage. So is there anything that sticks out from that time of performing live for people or just being in front of people?
I think it was probably like the first gig that I did, like ever, as in getting paid for
Mm,
performing. And I think that I remember it like clear as day. And I think kind of navigating the kind of songs that you're going to perform as well, like how having no experience, nobody telling you what you should play. I had a guitarist with me, and I was kind of trying to get as much information from him as possible about how it usually runs. And the set was like a 2:45 minute thing, so you have a little break in the middle, and then knowing from start to finish, how am I going to keep a crowd,
mm,
how are they going to get involved with me, how are they going to kind of judge me. All of these things are racing through my head. And it was essentially a restaurant, so sit down bar restaurant. And I remember I started to perform, and it kind of became quite quickly um, a sit down sort of watch me performance. So I'll never forget that, because I think you can so easily kind of be forgotten in them situations, like very much background music. And I think to have that as my first show and to people to sit and watch and stop what they're doing for their evening to sit and watch me, which was not what they even anticipated for that night, I think that always sticks in my mind, and was probably the very first time that I thought I want to continue doing this, and people are hearing something in my voice that means I should move on and yeah, continue that journey. So I'll never forget that first show that I did.
Right. And as you mentioned, continuing that journey is then putting your own thoughts to paper. And you mentioned they initially started as poems in a sense. So were they just kind of journaling poems? So they kind of experiencing life and then kind of purging those thoughts through putting them on paper?
Yeah, I don't really know. I'd always written bits of poetry here and there, even from like when I was
Okay.
super young, that didn't even really mean anything, to be honest. It was all it was quite all very random. And even now, like when if I want to put any sort of lyrics into my phone in a voice recording, like everything that I kind of record is very much sort of within my subconscious. So there's nothing that's kind of being said or written down that makes any sense. But then when I come back to it later on, there's so much of it that makes sense. And it's usually about what might be happening in my life or something that I've had like niggling away in my mind for the longest time. And I've been able to write it down on paper. And I guess it's almost like a form of therapy in a way,
Sure.
because I don't know what's actually going on inside my brain until I just let it out. And even then, not knowing what that means, but like I said, coming back to it and recognizing what has been going on in your mind for however long. It's quite a crazy thing, I guess, how I write music. And I think, even when I've been in writing sessions before, and you'll be maybe with a group of people, and I find it very difficult to really sit and think about the lyrics, because unless I do just put it into my phone and kind of really deep think about what I want to say, like everything sort of just comes out onto a voice note,
Mm.
that I find it very hard to like sit there and really think about every single lyric that I'm gonna sort of put out there for a specific song.
Right. And now Dark Horse was the first, if I'm not mistaken, and then now the Fool for You was the latest release.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but it feels like they cover kind of a similar subject in terms of dealing with a relationship that perhaps isn't the best for you. And I've asked this to quite a bunch of musicians, and it's more of a philosophical question, so it's a little bit vague. But why do you think, and concerning the EP is titled Self Sabotage as well, but why do you think people enter into so many relationships that are unhealthy for them?
I think because, well, I think mainly from my sort of experience, it was from not having any experience with a relationship before, and I think when you're, and also not even based on a relationship, I think the song itself can very much relate to that, but it's also about being in an environment of um, being. Oh, sorry, can you see me? Yes, fine.
Yes, yeah.
Um, I think it's also being in a bit of a toxic environment that at the time makes you feel good, because this person or the environment that you're in for a very short period of time can make you feel something that is really strong, whether it is love, whether you're going out drinking every weekend, and that moment of like um feeling super happy for a very short period of time, that can come and go so quickly, but that spurt of happiness makes you feel so good about yourself and about
Mm.
you know the environment that you're in, that it's almost like your brain gets tricked into feeling like, this is good for me, this is a good thing for me, that person's given me so much interest and love for those 24 hours, I'm going to take it for all I've got, and that's where I belong. And then quite quickly, when that sort of ends and diminishes, you kind of go so low and within yourself that you realize actually this is not a good thing for me at all. But the following week or the next day you might go back to it again, and it's that constant cycle of just feeling like you belong somewhere and that you are loved, but then it
Mm.
gets taken away from you so quickly. And I think that a lot of people fall into that trap. I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to a relationship, this person will give you the time of day for so long and then almost not forget about you, but you realize that you're not really that much to them and they can do without you, but you've grown that attachment to them. And therefore it kind of becomes that, again, that vicious circle of yeah, just feeling quite lost. So I think for me, when I wrote the song and what I was going through at the time was like, going out a lot, being sort of yeah, I guess involved with the wrong people at some stage of my life, and feeling like that was what I should be doing. And you know when you are young, you don't really have any thoughts on that. You kind of just go with where the party is, I guess. And I
Sure.
think I was led down that road for a while, and then you kind of come to a conclusion that actually it's not doing me any favors whatsoever. And going around in this circle constantly is actually making me quite unwell. And even that, as well as that going on, like being in a wrong relationship at the time and that same situation happening,
Mm.
that yeah, I think a lot of people can be led down the wrong road. And I think everybody goes through that in their teens.
Well, I think that's one of the better answers I heard to that question. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay.
when Because I find it interesting, because it is good advice to younger people to kind of be aware of the kind of situations that you put yourself in. So have you heard from people that listened to the song and told you something about their lives, or have you heard from people kind of a reaction to the songs?
Yeah, a lot of people have resonated with a relationship that they might have been in, or I've had quite a lot of DMs on my Instagram saying that people really relate to the track for whatever reason it might be. And some are definitely deeper than others. And I
Mm.
think I think that's, for me, I think from having only a couple of songs out now, this being my second single, to kind of have people say how they feel about your track and what they're going through in their life, and helping the person kind of remember what's going on in their life and be able to relate to it is a huge yeah, it just makes me feel so good, because I think I've had a few covers out there before, obviously,
Mm.
from that are out there, and I think a lot of people will say how they feel about my interpretation of it and how it makes them feel. But when it's your own song and you put your interpretation on your lyrics and everything has come from you, it's a completely different feeling to having your music out there. And knowing that people can relate to that is a feels like a huge achievement.
How do you see this Self Sabotage EP now? Then is it kind of the do you see it as the first introduction to Lucy who Lucy is as an artist in a sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, from recording the first, well, yeah, I'd say Full for You and Sober, which Sober is coming out very soon.
Mm.
I think I remember recording those two quite vividly and feeling like this is the start of creating something that feels very much like me. And I've been trying to find that for the longest time. And through writing music and being introduced to so many amazing writers and producers, and I have like so many songs stacked away that I
Mm.
love, but there was still something missing from my creative, I guess, me as an artist. There was just something missing. And me being involved, I remember being involved in a project basically that I wasn't too happy with, I was creating music that I didn't particularly love. Like
Mm.
I knew that the music would resonate with people, and they were very strong ballads, and it was good music, but there was, like I said, something missing. And all of the artists that I listened to at the time and still listen to now, I wanted to really involve that genre of music into what I was creating. And I think that the people that I was working with at the time were not necessarily um they couldn't really offer that for me, which, was no fault of theirs at all. But I was still looking for that person to work with
Mm.
that could understand what I wanted. So the producer that I found in the end, again, after doing this project in London, I went back to my hotel room that night, was really upset about what was going on, because I wasn't creating music that I wanted to. So I put so many voice notes into my phone that night, just random lyrics, random melodies, all of these things. It just came out from feeling the frustration that I felt. And then I went home the next day and I ended up writing two of the songs. So Fall For You was
Okay.
the track, and then another one called Sober that's coming out. And they just happened super quickly, just from feeling a certain way. And I think that for me as an artist now, to be able to have these songs on one EP and to feel like this is the start of a great journey, that's probably the best way I can describe it, because I think there's so much more to come from me as an artist. And whether that is working with other people, or whether it's creating for myself, or whatever it might be in the future that will come, I just think that there's still a lot more to happen. But where I'm at right now is where I know I need to be as an artist, definitely.
One last question then, because I find this very interesting, and the music business has always been quite volatile. But for is it difficult in a sense then to be patient in a way, because as you mentioned, you have all this music in your mind, you have already songs completed and all that stuff. Is it difficult to be patient and kind of be in the moment with what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think that the music industry generally is something that you have to be very patient with.
Mm.
And things definitely don't happen overnight, and the creative process definitely doesn't happen overnight. And there'll be so many times when I'm not feeling creative, or I'm feeling a bit sort of low, because I'm not in that creative headspace. And I think it, unfortunately for me, it does take me feeling a certain way, like whether it is frustration, or whatever kind of mood I'm in, will determine whether or not I can write. And I think, because I have to be patient with myself, I guess, as well. And I think when the Self Sabotage EP was written, it was from a place of frustration,
Mm.
and that did help me to write it. So I think that until I feel something again, in terms of whether it might be somebody in my life that is affecting me, and makes me want to write about certain things, that yeah, it can be, it's the music industry is definitely challenging for sure, but with it also comes, you know for me, finally feeling like this purpose that I have, and that it's become a career for me now. So I
Mm.
feel like this is a huge, huge achievement for me, and never ever did I think that it would become that. So I think, as much as I do feel these frustrations about releasing music, and when I feel creative, and all of those kind of business mind attributes that come with the music industry, I think to be where I'm at, is it feels right, and I know that all I want to do is continue creating in this field for sure.
That's great to hear. Can you just quickly? I don't know. Are you allowed to say when Sober comes out?
Um, I
I
I am
can always.
allowed, but I don't know when it's going to be. I,
Fair enough then.
the date keeps changing, so I think it's gonna it'll be
But
within the next few months.
okay, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, something for people to look forward to. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed speaking with you.